Robert Hur spoke in front of Congress, and they got a chance to ask him questions about his report and why he decided that he was not going to bring charges against Joe Biden. That was very interesting. What was most interesting was the way he was treated and what actually happened in the hearings. It was interesting how difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. And we're going to show you a little bit of that now.
My team and I conducted a thorough, independent investigation. We identified evidence that the president willfully retained classified materials after the end of his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. This evidence included an audio-recorded conversation during which Mr. Biden told his ghostwriter that he had, quote, just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. When Mr. Biden said this, he was a private citizen speaking to his ghostwriter in his private rental home in Virginia. We also identified other recorded conversations during which Mr. Biden read classified information aloud to his ghostwriter. We did not, however, identify evidence that rose to the level of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because the evidence fell short of that standard, I declined to recommend criminal charges against Mr. Biden. My report reflects my best effort to explain why I declined to recommend charging President Biden. I analyzed the evidence as prosecutors routinely do, by assessing its strengths and weaknesses, including by anticipating the ways in which the president's defense lawyers might poke holes in the government's case, if there were a trial, and seek to persuade jurors that the government could not prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. My task was to determine whether the president retained or disclosed national defense information willfully. That means knowingly and with the intent to do something the law forbids. I could not make that determination without assessing the president's state of mind. For that reason, I had to consider the president's memory and overall mental state and how a jury likely would perceive his memory and mental state in a criminal trial. These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. And because these issues were important to my ultimate decision, I had to include a discussion of them in my report to the Attorney General. The evidence and the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement, quote, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation. I took the same approach when I compared the evidence regarding President Biden to the department's allegations against former President Trump. There too, I called it like I saw it. As a prosecutor, I had to consider relevant precedents and to explain why different facts justify different outcomes.
He's saying that it was clear that he had that material in his house. He was clear that he shared classified information. He was clear that the president all of a sudden didn't remember. And oh, by the way, they have a couple of recordings that we haven't heard about. So those will be interesting if we ever get to hear it. Okay, we're joined by Howard Zim. How are you, Howard? Yeah, Jen's late again, and I can't even. If I could spank her, I would, Howard. Yeah, he's either senile and should be president or he should be prosecuted. Absolutely. You can't have it both ways. Beer Nuts, how are you tonight? How are you? Good to have you. It's just the four of us tonight. So you can't have it both ways, but they're trying to have it both ways. But so easy to charge Trump. Yeah, our next clip, we're going to see that in a minute. By the way, it's Ralph Rubnick. Okay, Ralph. Well, I'm glad you all remembered our Twitter and our Rumble handles, and I'm glad you all went over there when you saw that Facebook wasn't working. Clear about Hillary. Yeah, right. So we have a double standard. It's clear. And this is some questions by some congressmen, Congressman Issa and, well, I forgot the other one. I'm sorry. It's been a crazy day. But listen to the questions and listen to the answers. I think you're going to find this interesting.
Were there notes of the President of the United States that dated back to when he was a senator that contained classified information?
Among the documents that were recovered during our investigation were marked classified documents that dated back to when Mr. Biden was a senator.
You did not reach an idea that he had committed no wrong. You reached a conclusion that you would not prevail at trial and therefore did not take it forward. Is that correct?
Correct, Congressman.
I was not a prosecutor for more than a couple of years, but I still remember my record in jury trials. Do you remember your record?
It'll take me a little time to reconstruct, but I think I could get there.
Is it above 500?
It is above 500, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm curious because the evidence that you outlined in your report is pretty significant when it comes to evidence that after his vice presidency, and I'm reading from your report, Mr. Biden willfully retained marked classified documents about Afghanistan and unmarked classified handwritten notes in his notebooks, both of which he stored in unsecured places in his home. Further, you noted that there's evidence that he willfully retained the classified Afghanistan documents, including the Thanksgiving memo, and had a strong motive to keep such classified documents. You outline what that motive is. Can you tell me what is the motive for keeping the Thanksgiving Day memo?
One of the motives that we addressed in the report was that the issue of whether or not a troop surge should be sent to Afghanistan in 2009 was a hotly contested and debated issue within the Obama administration back in 2009, and one in which then Vice President Biden had a significant role and he felt very strongly about.
I'm going to quote from your report. President Biden believed President Obama's 2009 troop surge was a mistake on par with Vietnam and wanted the record to show that he was right about Afghanistan, that his critics were wrong, and that he had opposed President Obama's mistaken decision forcefully when it was made, that his judgment was sound when it mattered most. Does that sound correct?
That language sounds familiar from the report, yes.
Okay. That is pretty significant in terms of a motivating factor for retaining those documents, wouldn't you say?
That would be a factor that a jury would assess in considering whether or not Mr. Biden had criminal intent.
And I also know that President Biden was working with a ghostwriter on a book, Mark Zwanniker, correct?
Correct.
And it's your understanding that while Mr. Zwanniker interviewed President Biden, he read classified information from his notebooks nearly verbatim, sometimes for an hour or more at a time, correct?
Correct.
And was Mr. Zwanniker authorized to receive this classified information?
He was not.
And in fact, in their February 16th meeting, which has been alluded to earlier, isn't it true that President Biden read aloud and nearly verbatim classified information regarding the actions and views of U.S. military leaders and the CIA director relating to the foreign country and a foreign terrorist organization?
I believe that occurred, that was captured in a recording later in 2017, I believe in April of 2017, not February.
Okay. And Mr. Zwanniker became aware of your appointment as special counsel, correct?
At some point, Mr. Zwanniker did become aware of my appointment, yes.
And upon learning of the investigation, Mr. Zwanniker deleted digital audio recordings of his conversations with Mr. Biden during the writing of the book, Promise Me, Dad.
Correct.
Did investigators with your office interviewed Mr. Zwanniker about the deleted recordings, and he admitted that part of his motivation for deleting this recording was because he was aware there was an investigation, correct?
Correct.
And did this conduct raise concerns with your office?
It did. We considered it to be significant evidence that we needed to follow up on.
Really? So let's unpack what we saw. So Biden clearly, well, first of all, Hur, we know that he is not, batting 1,000 in prosecuting. So, him saying he didn't bring the case to a jury because the jury wouldn't convict is ridiculous, because he has lost cases and he's won cases and he's pled cases. So there was no reason not to let a jury see this. There was admission that he had these documents when he was a senator, when you can't have these documents. There was admission that the reason he took the Afghanistan file was because he wanted to put it in the book to prove that he was right and Obama was wrong. There was admission that the ghostwriter actually knew that there was an investigation, and so he erased the tapes that the recordings that that he had with Biden when Biden read from the classified documents verbatim to a ghostwriter, somebody that did not have classified clearance. And oh, by the way, those documents weren't just any documents; they were documents about Afghanistan specifically. So when you think about this, you can say for certain that there are so many similarities in the Trump case that for them to indict Trump on 40 counts of mismanaging classified documents and to not indict Biden is 100% hypocrisy. And they can try and explain it any way they want, but it is hypocrisy, and it's also a dual justice system. So let's just see what everybody has to say. Here's the issue. The line has been drawn. Objective reasoning has evaporated. It's the same mentalities which brought forth the worst despots in the name of democracy. 100%, Ralph. Hillary and Joe break the law, and the FBI and DOJ make every excuse in the book to exonerate them. Trump, who was president and had the right to declassify documents, has his home raided by the FBI. Exactly. You saw how the Republicans were questioning her. The Democrats had a different take on it. They used their 5 minutes instead of trying to get information and to have transparency for the public. Let's listen to Cori Bush and her 5 minutes of diatribe.
As my colleagues have pointed out, President Biden fully complied with the investigation conducted by Special Counsel Hur, who did not find evidence sufficient to warrant criminal charges. Despite this outcome, Republicans have used the Special Counsel's report to further their longstanding efforts to re-elect the former white supremacist in chief, Donald Trump, who faces 40 criminal charges related to the mishandling of classified documents, including obstruction of justice. While President Biden returned all of the classified material and complied with the Special Counsel's investigation, let's remind ourselves what Donald Trump has said and done. He refused to turn over the classified documents in his possession to the National Archives. He is on tape sharing documents he said he could have declassified when he was president. He wrongly claimed in an interview that the Presidential Records Act allows him to do whatever he wants, and he was allowed to do everything he did. He also said on his right-wing social media platform, quote, "I'm allowed to do all of this." He continues to admit to his possession of these documents on the campaign trail. So this hearing is not a good faith oversight effort. It is just the latest in a long line of dysfunctional and destructive actions taken by this Republican majority. They don't care about responsible governance or making people's lives better. They don't have an affirmative agenda. They are throwing whatever they can at the wall and hoping it sticks, and they have zero credibility to talk about mental acuity when they support Donald Trump. The same Donald Trump who mixes up Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi. The same Donald Trump who incorrectly pronounced the words Venezuela, respected, and United States. The same Donald Trump who calls January 6 defendants hostages. And the same Donald Trump who believed bleach injections would treat COVID-19. It is deeply hypocritical for anyone who champions this man for the presidency to talk about the mental acuity of anyone else.
They use the same template investigation of refusing to prosecute with Hillary. Clearly, she obstructed 100%. I am losing IQ points listening to her. Well, this is, they have made up their minds. They have decided that Donald Trump was never president, that was a big mistake, that, we need to erase it from history the same way we erased Christopher Columbus and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and whoever else. So they're trying to erase him from history.